Hello everyone, welcome back. I hope your week is going well and I hope your semester is going well. We have covered quite a bit of ground in our class. We'll continue to do so today. Welcome to my office. I am recording this video in my office this week. And this week we're going to talk about the theories in communication about the communicator. And please continue to send me your feedbacks about video lectures and the Blackboard content, and we'll try to improve it in any way that we can to make it easier and more fun for you. We will start our lecture with the socio-psychological tradition. In socio-psychological theories of the communicator, the individual is the unit of analysis. The question is how and why individuals behave the way they do. Under this tradition, we will first discuss the trait theory. The trait theory argues that your communication style depends mostly on your biologically determined traits, not on the situation. It assumes that each individual thinks, feels, and behaves in relatively consistent ways across various situations, so his or her behavior is very predictable. If you ever heard someone saying something like, "Oh, mom will get really angry when she hears about this," that person is simply using what we call the trait theory while making that judgment. He probably observed his mom thinking, behaving, and reacting things in certain ways, and based on his observations of her consistent behavior and personality characteristics, he predicts her reaction or the outcome. This theory makes a distinction between the dominant and non-dominant traits. Dominant traits are called the super traits, and they are small sets of general traits that can explain many behaviors. Various combinations of them makes a person an individual or a unique person. But since these traits are common among all people, the theory says we can predict their behaviors and reactions. Neuroticism is one of them. It explains our negative compulsions, phobias, anxieties, etc. Are we pessimistic or optimistic in general? Do we have phobias or anxieties? If so, what are they and how much? Extroversion is the second one. How extroverted are we? How assertive we are as a person? Those are the questions it asks. Openness, are we independent or reflective thinker? Do we have imagination? Are we open to new ideas? Agreeableness, how agreeable are we? Are we one of those who avoids antagonism or seeks it? Conscientiousness is another one. How much self-discipline do we have? Can we resist impulses? Are we well organized? Do we complete the tasks we start, or do we have the tendency to give up before we complete them? Argumentativeness and communication anxiety are the two commonly researched topics in this area. Argumentativeness is the tendency to engage in conversations about controversial topics with the goal of refuting the opposing beliefs. It is seen as a positive trait and distinctly separated from the verbal aggressiveness and hostility, which are considered as negative traits. Communication apprehension is the fear or dislike of communicating in specific situations, like public speaking, for example. A person might totally be comfortable with the idea of discussing an issue in an interpersonal setting, but not so comfortable with the idea of giving speeches, being on the stage, lecturing, or participating in a public discussion. Under this category, there are cognitive theories and theories that help us explain how we process information. Cognitive theories explain how a person thinks, organizes, and stores information, and how cognition helps shape his behavior. Attribution theory is the first one we will discuss under this category. Attribution theory simply deals with how we explain the causes of our behavior and the behaviors of others. The theory argues that there are several causes that we use to explain our behaviors. It says that we can attribute the cause to the situation, to the personal dispositions or characteristics, to our abilities or disabilities, our goals, efforts, and desires, or to the meanings that things may have for us, or to the permissions that we have. Someone who says, urgent nature of the issue forced me to take an executive action, is attributing the cause to the situation. Someone who says, he has always been that way, is attributing the behavior to the personality traits. Someone who says, he works hard to get what he wants, is attributing it to the goals and desires. Or someone who says, it was within his authority, is attributing the behavior to the permission or authority that that person had to behave in a certain way. Social judgment theory is another theory we will discuss under this category. Social judgment theory focuses on how people make judgments about statements they hear. It says everyone has core beliefs and core convictions. In the diagram, these core beliefs constitute the person's latitude of acceptance. These are the beliefs that we will defend no matter what. And if we hear messages that comply with these beliefs, we will accept them. On both sides of these core beliefs, there is a gray area. We call this area the latitude of non-commitment. Because we're not committed to these values one way or another, we can be swayed to one side or the other by a persuasive message. But there is a red zone beyond the latitude of non-commitment. That zone contains the ideas that contradict with our core beliefs. And if someone tries to sway us, we will resist and reject the message. In fact, sometimes the conflicting messages may have a boomerang effect. And instead of changing our beliefs, they may actually strengthen our beliefs or the position on that issue. Let's say you have a strong position on abortion. The boomerang effect can occur if someone tries to persuade you to think in an opposite way. The more he tries, the stronger your beliefs may become on that topic. Ego involvement, of course, is an important issue in this theory. If the issue is personally important to you or relevant to you, then you become more resistant to the opposing ideas. Elaboration likelihood theory is a persuasion theory that tries to predict when and how you will or will not be persuaded by the messages. Elaboration, the word elaboration here simply means critical thinking, and the theory helps us understand when or why or how this way of thinking kicks in while we are processing or evaluating messages. It posits two ways of message processing: critical and non-critical thinking. Critical thinking occurs in the central route, while the lack of critical thinking or non-critical thinking occurs in the peripheral route. In central route processing, you consider the arguments carefully and compare them with what you know. In peripheral processing, you quickly make judgments from simple cues. For example, right now you're using peripheral thinking while listening to this lecture. You're open to be persuaded by my messages. You are making judgments based on simple facts. You're thinking, she's a teacher, this is her job, she thought this before, she knows what she's talking about, and has no personal agenda. You are processing the information that you're receiving uncritically right now. But if I were someone you don't like or trust, or someone you believe to have some personal agenda, or if I say something that contradicts with what you believe or what you know, then critical thinking will kick in and you will process the information in the central route, analyze it in detail, carefully, and then decide whether you will accept it or not. heuristic systematic models is almost the same thing with a few distinctions. Instead of central and peripheral routes, this theory offers systematic processing and concurrent processing. Systematic processing is critical and careful and discriminating way of processing information. Concurrent processing involves both systematic processing and heuristic processing. Heuristics are, of course, as you read in your papers, in your books, are shorthand patterns of thought that we learn in life, usually through our experiences. We use these shortcuts to interpret the messages we receive. While processing a message this way, we use several clues. For example, we can use communicator cues. That means, we evaluate how much we like the person, how much we trust his or her expertise. We can use contextual cues. Opinions of others, for example, will be under this category. We use message cues, like the strength of the arguments made or the evidence the communicator provided for those arguments. Think about the previous example we talked about. It will apply in this case too. Whether you like me as a person or as a teacher, or whether you trust my expertise and knowledge in this class, will figure into how you would choose to process my messages. You will probably use contextual clues while making your decisions too. If you had talked to other students before taking this class, what you heard about it will figure into your judgment. Similarly, the nature of the message and the content within which you are receiving these messages will play a role in your judgment. So a scholar using this theory will simply look into these factors and try to determine first what type of processing you are employing while you are evaluating the message, and second, the scholar will study how and why you're choosing these methods to process this information. And based on those, he or she will try to predict the outcome. Now we will move on to the cybernetic tradition. The first theory we will study under this group is the information and integration theory. Information integration theory explains how we process and organize information to form attitudes and how those attitudes influence our behaviors. It suggests that two factors play important roles in determining how information will be processed and how we will react to it. These factors are valence and weight. Valence is whether the information supports or refutes the existing beliefs. If the information you receive support your existing beliefs, it will have a positive valence for you. If it contradicts them, then it will have a negative valence for you. Weight is about how credible the information is. Valence affects how information influences your belief system. Weight affects how much that influence would be. Let's say you have a strong belief in education, and let's say you attended a conference and listened to a speaker who argued that the existing school system and the education they deliver curb creativity and innovation. If you believe the information is credible, it will have a positive weight for you. However, the information has a negative valence for you because it conflicts with your existing belief on education. In that case, you have three options. One, you can accept the information and change your attitude about education. Two, you reject the information completely. Three, you negotiate and find a new balance. You say something like, education is important, and if the current system is not doing what it's supposed to be doing, then we should fix it. So the basic idea behind the information integration theory is to understand, explain, and predict how we balance or change our attitudes. Two main branches of this theory are expectancy value and reasoned action theories. Expectancy value theory says that our attitude towards something is the combination of how strong all related beliefs toward that subject are and how important each of those beliefs to us. The theory of reasoned action adds to that formula the concept of intention. It says that our attitude towards something, the perceived importance of that attitude for us, the perceived opinion of others on that issue, and the perceived importance of those opinions for us determine our behavior. The example in your book is a really good one in this regard. If you are, let's say, failing at school and want to quit, but your parents think education is important and you value their opinions very much, you may decide to stay at school despite the fact that you personally want to drop out. Another theory we will learn about under this category is the theory of cognitive dissonance. This theory explains what we do when we receive information that contradicts with our existing beliefs and attitudes, how we deal with it, and how we resolve that conflict. The theory teaches us that we ignore the message if we deem it irrelevant to us. Whether that message is compatible or contradictory with our existing beliefs and attitudes loses its importance at that point because we deem the message irrelevant to us. If the message is perceived relevant, and if it also is compatible with our existing beliefs and values and attitudes, then it tends to reinforce those existing beliefs. If we find the message relevant, but if it contradicts with our own beliefs, then we begin searching for ways to eliminate the psychological tension and discomfort it creates in us. As listed on the PowerPoint, the strategies we employ to eliminate the tension range all the way from completely changing our beliefs and attitudes or behavior to consciously distorting or misinterpreting the information or the message. For example, let's say that there is a politician you admire very much. You admire this individual's accomplishments, character, work ethic, and so on. And let's say you have voted for this person for so many years. And let's say just recently you learned something disturbing about this person. Let's say you learned that this politician was involved in a big scandal. This information can make you question your own beliefs or your own behavior, in this case, your voting behavior. In that case, you have several options. You can decide to completely change your belief, attitude, or behavior. You can say something like, I was wrong and I will never vote for this party again. Or you can say, I still believe in the values this party represents, but I won't vote for this specific person again. I will wait for someone else to take on the leadership role in this party before I vote for them again. You can also say something like, well, this is not such a big deal. All politicians are dirty, and he is still the best one among all of them, and continue to vote for this person. Or you can claim that the information is completely false and ignored. So a scholar who is using this theory will first determine how you perceive the information, whether you deemed it relevant or irrelevant, and then study how it affects you and how you process it and why. Whether it creates cognitive dissonance or not, if it creates cognitive dissonance, why it's creating this cognitive dissonance, what are these basic or core beliefs or attitudes or behaviors this message is challenging, and how you find a new balance in order to lessen that tension or get rid of that tension, mental tension or psychological tension this contradictory message creates. Now we're going to start talking about sociocultural tradition. There is a common argument that all theories under this tradition make, and that argument is the fact that humans are social beings. Under this tradition, we will first talk about the symbolic interaction theory. Symbolic interaction teaches us that as we interact with one another over time, we come to share meanings and come to understand things and events in particular and similar ways. Society itself arises from these interlaced conversations among individuals, it says. In other words, this theory makes the same argument the interpretive paradigm makes. It says reality is socially constructed. In this theory, the self is an important concept. According to this theory, self is defined, developed, and understood over time through interactions with others. So the self is not private or individual. It is a social object. Let me try to explain it through a simple example. You probably heard this saying that what parents tell to their children becomes their inner voice. That's probably the best saying that can help us understand symbolic interaction and its arguments. If your parents constantly told you that you are beautiful, smart, and intelligent, you grow up thinking that you really are beautiful, smart, and intelligent, and you have self-confidence. If they constantly told you that you are dumb and useless, then you probably grow up thinking you really are useless, you really are dumb, and it will damage your self-confidence. But parents are not the only ones we interact with, thankfully. We have siblings, relatives, friends, colleagues, and other people around us who constantly send messages to us about who we are and how they see us. So the self, in so many ways, is a social object. It is composed of not only who we think we are, but also who others think we are. Our perception of ourself is a collage of all messages we receive. It is a combination of our self-evaluations, other people's evaluations of us, our goals, our interests, our ideologies, our beliefs, and everything else. This theory makes a distinction between the people who are important to us and those who are not. It calls the people to whom we are emotionally and psychologically committed the orientational others. And it says, especially the interactions with these orientational others play an important role in the development of the self. They are very influential in our lives because they provide the vocabulary, the concepts, and categories through which we define ourselves. Erving Goffman takes this argument further and makes a distinction between the self and the presentational self. He uses a theatrical metaphor of stage, presentation, and presentational self to explain how we present ourselves to others. He argues that the person you perform in one situation is not the same person that you perform in another situation. So instead of self, his focus is on the situation. And he offers two ways of analyzing the situation. First one is the strip analysis, and the other one is the frame analysis. The strip analysis is a sequence of activities. Here we analyze how our behavior fits with a series of other behaviors. The frame analysis, on the other hand, focuses only on the given situation and analyzes how the individual organizes, understands, and makes sense of that situation. So the scholar who is using this theory will use these two ways of analysis and will try to understand the individual's behavior. how he usually behaves, and how is he behaving under specific circumstances. So far, we talked about the individual and individual only. One theory taught us how our individuality or the self is constructed. The other one made a distinction between the self and the presentational self. Now we are going to learn about the theory that expands our understanding of identity a bit more. The communication theory of identity makes a distinction between the individual, the communal, and the social identities we have. So according to this theory, we have three different types of identities: individual identity, communal identity, and societal identity. A person's identity is the combination of all three. It has emotional, cognitive, behavioral, and spiritual components. Our identity has two dimensions according to this theory. First one is the subjective dimension. The second one is ascribed dimension. Subjective dimension describes your personal sense of self. Ascribed dimension, on the other hand, describes or explores what others say about you. Subjective and ascribed identities break down into series of 4 layers. There is the personal layer, there is the enactment layer, there is the relational layer, there is the communal layer. So a scholar who's using this theory will look at all of these concepts while he is trying to understand the behavior of an individual. The last theory we will discuss under this group is the identity negotiation theory. This theory examines how identity is negotiated in interaction with others, especially when we interact interculturally. The theory makes a distinction among personal, cultural, and ethnic identities, just like the previous one, but this time the focus is on cultural and ethnic identities. The cultural and ethnic identities are collective identities. Personal identity, on the other hand, is individual, is personal, it is who we think we are. We negotiate our identities every time we interact with others, but this negotiation, according to this theory, becomes more obvious when we interact with people who have different cultural backgrounds. 2 elements, according to this theory, factors into this negotiation. First one is the value content, the second one is salience. Salience explains how strongly we feel affiliated with a cultural group. In this case, could be a racial group or ethnic group or national group, or it could be a religious group. And the value content explains how much we value the beliefs and convictions that come with those connections. So identity negotiation theory will look into these components. It will try to see how a person is negotiating his personal, cultural, and ethnic identities in a given situation. The cultural adaptation process that immigrants go through when they move to a new country is a good example of that negotiation, and this theory will help us understand how that negotiation takes place and explore the factors that play a role in this negotiation. Okay, we finally came to the end of our lecture. Now we will switch our focus from the social-cultural tradition to the rhetorical tradition, and here we will discuss Richard Lever's theory of truth and rhetoric. Richard Weaver was someone who had a conservative worldview, and his religiously grounded worldview colored his thinking about humans and rhetoric. He argued that humans are composed of three parts: the body, the mind, and soul. He said we access, understand, and communicate truth through these faculties. The body, of course, is the physical part. We have senses. We perceive and understand the world around us through these senses. We see, we hear, we touch, we smell, we taste, right? The mind is the second part. This is the rational thought, or our ability to think. The soul, on the other hand, is our moral compass, our ability to distinguish good and bad, right and wrong. So, according to Weaver, there are three levels of knowledge. The first level is the level of ideas. These are the facts, material world around us, or the things that we know and experience without much reflection. The second level is the beliefs and convictions. Based on our beliefs and convictions, we make generalizations. And the last level is the metaphysical dream, the ideal reality, or reality in its ideal form. This is where the truth resides. Truth is the degree to which ideas and convictions conform to their ideal form. For example, equality is an ideal, is a metaphysical dream on our part, right? But whether our reality, the conditions we live in, or the choices we make in a given moment correspond to this ideal or not is a totally different question. People do not have the complete freedom to define the metaphysical dream for themselves. This dream stems from the culture's ideals. Weaver defines these ideals as the tyrannizing image. It is the vision of perfection or excellence toward which the society strives. It is the culture's ultimate values, such as freedom, independence, pursuit of happiness, and so on. So for Weaver, rhetoric embodies and promotes these cultural ideas. So one of the goals of a rhetorical analysis is to identify or uncover the underlying values of the speech and the speaker. Why is the speaker is making the argument he's making, and how that argument is substantiated are the important questions to ask in an analysis. He believes that types of arguments a person is habitually making reveals his truths, his values, and his worldview. If a speaker uses a particular argument consistently, he or she is asking not only that the audience accept the argument, but also accept the particular construction of reality that underlies that argument. According to Weaver, there are four types of arguments: genus, similitude, cause and effect, and testimony. Genus uses accepted definitions and categories to make an argument. Saying, like, X is a sin is a good example of arguing from genus. In that sentence, the word sin is a genus. It is an accepted and agreed upon concept, and the speaker doesn't need to explain what constitutes a sin. Saying X is a sin simply justifies his argument. A similitude is when a speaker uses similarities as the basis for his argument. Analogy, metaphor, comparisons, examples are in this category. Cause and effect argument, on the other hand, represents something as the cause of something else. An argument that relies on testimony, on the other hand, uses the statements made by experts to justify the argument. Beyond these, Weaver suggests that we also need to analyze the grammatical categories and ultimate terms that the speaker might be using while he is making his arguments. According to him, the grammatical categories a speaker uses may reveal that speaker's worldview. For example, a simple grammar and simple sentence structures may point to the educational level of the speaker or level of complexity of his thoughts. Those who have capacity to have complex thoughts probably would use complex ways of expressing those thoughts. Our scholarly articles are a good example of it. Unless you have a certain level of complexity, ability to think in complex terms, you may not be able to write those articles or read and understand those articles. Ultimate terms, on the other hand, are the terms that are sanctioned by the culture. These terms represent that culture's absolute values. We would suggest that we should interrogate them in our analysis because they reveal our worldviews. Well, we have come to the end of our long lecture this week. I hope it helped you understand the chapter a little bit better or easier. If you have questions, please do not hesitate to ask. Send them to me as an email or maybe ask them on the blackboard. I'll try my best to answer them. But this is it for this week. I'll see you next time.